and welcome to Healers Not Dealers, our first episode. This podcast aims to bring you awareness on both plant medicines and the unjust treatment of people that experience and work with these medicines. Healers Not Dealers was started and focused around one man's trial, Joel Cunningham. He is currently serving a 4-year prison sentence for helping people spanning back a decade with natural medicines, namely cannabis oil, full spectrum cannabis oil. He is currently serving a sentence which was at first given suspended by the judge after a 9-day trial in summer. He was then recalled back to court with only 5 days' notice, and a 4-year prison sentence was issued. Now, the original trial, many people came, testified on Joel's behalf, and Joel believes that where there's no victim, there's no crime. He has fought for himself, what he believes in, and all of us through this trial, and a whole movement has now developed through this. We are growing every day. The attention to Healers Not Dealers and the movement that Joel has sparked is absolutely enormous, and it grows every day. With that, we feel right now is a very poignant time to share some of the stories that Joel has worked with people along the way. Some of these people came and testified in court, and we believe getting these stories out there is really valuable to both bringing awareness to the unjust treatment of Joel and people like him that choose to work with these medicines and help people, and also the power of the medicines themselves and how they can help and assist, and how it's so criminal that we are denied access to these medicines. Before we get started, I just want to thank Disciples of Truth, Craig and Zoe, for donating this wonderful studio to us and their amazing equipment. Thank you so much, guys. And if you could give them a follow on Instagram, Disciples of Truth Podcasts, that would be amazing, as a thank you for helping us out, bringing this story to you. So, today I'm joined by Emma. Thank you for joining us, Emma.
You're welcome.
Emma reached out to Joel earlier on this year when your daughter was diagnosed with FND.
Yeah.
FND is a neurological disorder where the brain stops communicating with the body so well.
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave that explanation because I'm going to allow your story to develop itself.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, just take us back to before anything, before any symptoms, before any diagnosis. It's just this year, I believe.
Yes. So, previous to 16th of May, Regan was a very independent, active 17-year-old girl, done dancing, went away to do motocross, had her whole life ahead of her, with just passing her driving test in March this year. So yeah, she was actually a carer, so cared in community for obviously elderly people. But yeah, there was no health issues that Regan had.
Okay.
There was nothing, apart from she had migraines as a young child, but other than that,
She had healthy
nothing.
17-year-old.
Yeah, she had nothing before that.
Okay.
So,
And
yeah.
What was the first sign of anything might be wrong?
So, the first sign was on the 16th of May this year, and I was cutting her hair. I'm not a hairdresser, but I was cutting her hair, and she stood up and she says, "I don't feel well."
Okay.
And just at that, she dropped to the ground. Obviously, looking at her, she was not responding to anything we were saying. And it was almost instantly we phoned an ambulance because we knew something wasn't right. She lay like that, sort of in and out consciousness for, I would say, probably about 10-15 minutes, and then she started taking her first seizure. She had never taken a seizure before in her life until that point.
Okay.
So it was quite difficult to obviously see your daughter going through something like that we weren't aware of. There was nothing else. There was no symptoms beforehand. She actually was taking a video with her brother literally 3 minutes before, and things was fine. There was no indication of anything being wrong until that point.
And you have a medical background yourself, haven't
Yeah.
you?
So I worked for NHS previous, obviously. When this was all happening with Regan, I worked with NHS. And looking at Regan, I knew instantly something was wrong.
Okay.
That was a medical thing. That wasn't a mother's thing. That was a medical thing that I knew something wasn't right. In that instance, we obviously were on a phone call to 999, and they basically told us somebody would phone us back. So I was a bit like, okay. I was like, but she's never took a seizure before and you're expecting me just to wait on a phone call back? So I wasn't happy. Somebody did phone, so it was an advanced paramedic who'd phoned back to basically say to us what was happening, asking the ins and outs of what was going on at that precise moment in time. Regan had been taking a seizure for about 8 minutes at this point, on and off. We just couldn't get her out of this seizure. And obviously,
so she's fully unconscious at this point?
Then the advanced paramedic actually turned up to the house. They told us it would be 20 minutes before anybody could get to us.
Okay.
Which I wasn't happy with because I knew something wasn't right. She had already been seizing for a long period of time, more than you should have. So normally it's 5 minutes, and then anything after 5 minutes is a danger to life. So I expressed obviously my concerns. The advanced paramedic come in. He was pretty horrible, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
He was like, what even is this? Because she was coming out of the seizure. And he was like, what is this? Like, it was disgusting, the way that he approached the whole situation. Then the paramedics arrived with the ambulance. They obviously couldn't say anything because he's a senior to them, but they didn't agree with what was going on. And at that point, I wasn't happy with him treating my daughter.
Yeah.
We were taken to hospital. So we got taken to our local hospital. We were in A&E, referred to First Fit Clinic, because that's what happens, and then discharged home within a few hours of her taking the seizures.
Okay.
Got home, we were home 2 hours, and she started taking more seizures. So we phoned another ambulance, and they says, so she was out the seizure by the time the paramedics actually come in. And they says you can go back to hospital just so they could observe you overnight, or you can stay at home. But they advised us it'd probably best to go to hospital just to get monitored overnight. So we went to hospital, got monitored. She got obviously 24-hour monitoring, and then was discharged home the next day, with the appointment for the First Fit Clinic.
And what were they telling you at this point?
They reckoned that it was epilepsy, but they couldn't give any medication straight away because they weren't guaranteed until she had her EEG and MRI.
Okay.
They wanted to do that first, but at this point she had none of these. So I think the first protocol is first fit clinic. That's a normal thing for to happen. So yeah, we went home and she still didn't seem herself. She was having like absences, so it was almost like she wasn't there. So you were speaking to her, but she wasn't actually responding to certain things. And this happened for a good few days after our first lot of seizures and being discharged home. So we spoke to the GP. The GP advised that we go for an eye test because Regan could see, it was almost like she could see the person, but everything around that person was a blur.
Okay.
So they just says, take her for an eye test. It could be just her eyesight that's affected through the seizure. So we did. We booked an eye test at our local opticians.
And how many seizures is she having at this point?
So at that point she had only had, I think she had like clusters, but it was like 4 in total of clusters.
Okay.
So she hadn't had any more since being discharged from hospital. But she obviously was having absences, which is classed as small seizures at this point. Then we went to the opticians. She got her eyes tested. Says her eyes was just the same as they would normally be. Regan wears glasses. She did used to have a strong prescription, but it seems to be getting better as she's getting older. So she does wear glasses anyway, and he says there was no change, but we'll check the health of her eyes. So they did the health of the eye check, and because that has flashes, so it's a camera flash,
Okay.
that triggered her into having seizures. So she literally went to stand up and just dropped. So it was almost not even a minute after the flashes happened.
Mm-hmm.
She literally straight went into a seizure.
Which indicates epilepsy again.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 3% of epileptic people that actually suffer with the flashing lights, believe it or not.
Okay.
But when she dropped, I knew instantly. The opticians knew the reasons why she was there, that she was taking seizures, and this was when he did her eyes checked as well. So they were on the ball. They were quite quick. They were amazing. And they phoned an ambulance. Obviously, they had never really seen anything like this. And an optician, she didn't see much of that, to be honest with you. But the paramedics arrived, and they did arrive quite quickly. When they arrived, Regan had already taken 5 seizures. At this point, she was still taking a seizure, had a further 2 after that, and both paramedics was in agreement that this was epilepsy seizures that she was having. Tonic-clonic seizures, they're cried. It's a specific type of seizures. They are quite dangerous. So they obviously had recovery meds available for Regan. Then she got up, no problem, walked to the ambulance after taking a seizure. Obviously a bit exhausted because it mentally drains her, physically drains her. She walked into the ambulance and went into hospital again. This time she was in for a week.
Okay.
Whilst in hospital, so as soon as she arrived, she went into resus, and a neurologist had come and spoke to us and says, we're going to put her on epilepsy meds. So they were going to put her on Keppra, which is an epilepsy med, and they were going to start it that evening. We then were moved departments to majors, just because she wasn't currently seizing at that time, so they felt that she would be safe enough being there. We were sitting for maybe a couple of hours and she started taking more seizures, and doctors was coming in and was like, right, okay, we need to get this epilepsy med started, like, quickly. Because she just kept taking seizures, and it was tonic-clonics that she was taking at that specific time. So they put the Keppra up, the loading dose of Keppra up, and along with another type of medication, I can't remember what one it was. And when they had that up, she had no seizures. There was nothing.
Okay.
She was back to normal. Like, it was just like, right, okay, it must be epilepsy.
Yeah.
That's what we initially thought. She was then transferred to the ward, and the ward was amazing. They looked after her. Then when I called Regan in the morning, she says that they were stopping the epilepsy meds. And I asked why, and she didn't know. I says, well, I'll come down and I'll speak to the doctor. So I went down, and nobody could tell me why they were stopping the meds. Neurologist had says to stop the meds. So I was a bit like, well, this is the only thing that stopped her seizures. This is the only thing that's actually put her back to normal, because she wasn't even having vacancies. She looked normal again, because in that whole period of time of her being at home, she didn't even look normal. Her eyes was quite glazy, and this was the first time that she actually looked normal again. But obviously put that down to, okay, they must be doing further investigations before they can prescribe medication long term. So yeah, within a few hours of her due the next dose, she started taking more seizures. So seizures had lasted for 3 days, continuous, almost every half an hour to every hour.
Okay.
They were constant battle. Neurologist we first spoke to, I actually told her to leave, because she actually put Regan into a seizure.
Right.
Because she wasn't listening, and Regan was getting frustrated because she wanted to explain, but she just didn't want to listen to her voice. So I asked her to leave, because she obviously put Regan into another seizure.
I imagine you're getting frustrated at this point,
Yeah.
even with your medical background,
Mm-hmm.
the way that you're being sort of shipped and changed around
Yeah.
and told different things.
Yeah.
It must be frustrating. You're getting frustrated by now.
Yeah. So obviously she stayed in. They done the MRI while she was in. She took 2 seizures in the MRI machine. Then they done the EEG the next day, and basically the discharge letter. I thought, well, surely they can't go with that answer, because it's not a proper reading. So I know that normally, if something's inconclusive, you normally would do it again to get a better answer. So Regan had her EEG, and she took a few seizures with the flashing lights part of the EEG, which we obviously then at that point knew the flashing lights was a trigger. We knew instantly that was a trigger. But obviously previous, Regan never had issues with flashing lights. This was all new to us. And this was obviously in the space of just a few weeks. Then a consultant come in, and it's our current consultant, had basically says she has FND.
Okay. Is this the first time?
This was the first mention of FND.
Yeah.
I had previously heard of it, but didn't know much about it, just through looking after a patient who had it.
Mm-hmm.
But
I've got to be honest, I'd not heard of it. It's something I had to look.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you've not experienced it, then it's maybe something you've not heard of so much.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know what it is. I mean, each time we mention that Regan has FND, they're a bit like, what is it?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we obviously got told she has FND. At that point, we had quite a lot of questions. Me as being her mum had a lot of questions, but also a medical part of, okay, well, what's the next steps? Where do we go from here? And basically, he told us to go and educate ourselves. Gave us a website, told us to go educate ourselves, and then we would get a referral for neuropsychology and psychologists. So at that point, I was a bit like, oh, what?
But Regan's still having all these seizures.
Yeah. So we were discharged home. The only reason we were discharged home, he says, was because I was medically trained.
Okay.
So we went home, no medication, no nothing. Says we would follow up with an appointment with him in clinic, and that was it. Given a website, told to go home, educate yourself. But that's very common. Each person you ask that has FND will tell you the exact same.
Right.
This is the protocol, which is a disgusting protocol, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
There's no support. There's lack of support there. Yeah, I mean...
Do you think that comes from a lack of understanding and knowledge on it?
They know about it, because when you ask them, they'll tell you answers, but they'll also tell you, look further into it. And I think education is a big part of it. So that's not a mandatory education thing for any doctors, nurses, paramedics, things like that. That is not in their mandatory stuff for to educate themselves. There's no nothing.
Okay.
So through obviously connections that I have now, we've organised for to try and get that put into place.
Yeah.
Because we feel that a lot of people's being misread. They're not getting enough understanding.
Yeah.
Staff don't know about it. You go into A&E and they dismiss you because you've got FND. Even if you're there for something else, you've got FND, go home.
Okay.
That's
where it's at.
That's where it is.
So you've got this, what was a normal, healthy daughter.
Yep.
All of a sudden, she's having all of these seizures.
Mm-hmm.
And the only answers that you get in it is it's FND and go and research it yourself.
Yeah.
No help, no
support,
no medicines.
Nothing. There's no medicines. They told us there was nothing that they could do medically. All they could do is counselling if it's mental health. Regan actually had hers and psychiatrists and things, and they says that it's nothing to do with Regan's mental health at all, which was a relief for us. But actually at the same time, it's almost like at least you would have had answers.
Yeah.
Why she has it, we don't have answers. We still don't have answers, and we're months down the line.
Yeah.
But she obviously, after that situation, obviously she was having seizures at home multiple times a day.
How many a day would she have?
She could have 7, 8 in a day. Easy. Sometimes she would have more.
Okay.
But on a normal daily basis, this is what was happening. There was one point, I don't think we actually went a whole week without being seizure free. It was every other day that she was having the seizures. But the seizures normally, so it presents like obviously a normal looking seizure to anybody else that was looking at it. But with an FND seizure, she can hear us. So while she's taking the seizure, she can hear us.
Okay.
Epilepsy seizures, they don't hear.
All right.
So at that point, she was obviously taking the seizures. Then she would come round. Her speech, she wouldn't have any speech. It would come back quite slurred, and then eventually it would come back over a period of maybe half an hour, something like that. She would also be paralysed from the neck down. No movement in hands or feet. Sometimes the legs would come back first, sometimes the hands would come back.
And how long would that last?
That would come back quite quickly. So that would come back normally about 20 minutes.
Okay.
So her speech was always the longest thing. but she used to just use her phone to type what she was trying to tell us once she got feeling back in one hand. And that was her way of communicating to us. But it was always the case that Regan never just had one seizure. She would always have one, feel, and then come out of it and then say she felt sick. She was never sick, and then she'd go straight back into another one. So that's when she says she felt sick, we knew another one was coming.
Okay.
She didn't always know another one was coming, but we did.
So all of a sudden you're getting used to life like this and you're
Yeah.
having to adapt
Mm-hmm.
to all of these seizures a day. And have you had to give up work at this point?
So at that point I gave up work because I thought, I was on sick leave because obviously I had a lot of stress at that specific time.
Yeah, of course.
So I was a bit like, right, okay, my daughter needs me more than anything else. But it went on, obviously this went on for a few months, a few weeks even. It wasn't even months, it felt like months probably because it was like constant. Then there was one day we went to the motocross. At this point Regan wasn't allowed on her bike purely because she was taking so many seizures, but she still enjoyed going to the motocross.
Right.
So we went to motocross. She took a few seizures at the motocross. This would have been the 8th of June, I'm sure it was. And then we were driving home, she had more seizures in the car. My husband and my brother-in-law literally had to carry her into the house because we thought, no, what, if we can get her into the house, in between these seizures, she's safe in house.
Yeah.
Got her into the house and she just says she felt weird, and it was almost like she just felt this weird feeling in her body, and she was paralysed from the shoulders down. And we thought, okay, that's fine, it'll probably go away.
Yeah.
Which it normally does.
Yeah.
She's just had quite a lot of seizures, so we thought it'll probably go away. We left it a few hours. She got sort of a wee bit feeling in one thumb.
Okay.
So she was able to give us a thumbs up, which was a positive thing, but she was able to speak, so her speech wasn't affected at this point.
Okay.
But obviously she was paralysed.
Wow.
And I was a bit concerned, so I phoned NHS 24 and they contacted us and says basically the ambulance service would take over. They would give us a call back and somebody would come out because of the situation, and we explained that she has FND, and they basically says an ambulance would come out and look at her. And I says if she needed to go to hospital, and I says I don't think she does, I'm just concerned as to why she's been paralysed for so long. So yeah, at that point we were like, okay, so we were like, my husband had to feed her dinner, but we had to give her smooth stuff because we didn't know if it had affected any of her windpipe or anything like that. So she had a smooth dinner, and then not long after it she started taking another seizure. So this seizure was different. This seizure was different from what we've seen with our FND seizures. I knew something was different.
Okay.
So immediately I phoned 999 because we were told phone 999 back if there's any change. So there was change. She started obviously taking another seizure. So we phoned and Regan actually started choking while she was taking a seizure on like the foam that's produced when you're taking a seizure, and then she stopped breathing. So at that point we obviously were told go and get the defib, start chest compressions. I knew not to start chest compressions only through my training, that she still had a pulse. It was there, it was weak, but it was definitely there. So I refused. I told the call centre I'm not giving chest compressions.
Yeah.
I mean, it was quite an intense phone call. As you can imagine, it probably would be stressful, but I think because I knew and I was in that situation, and it was almost, I wasn't in mum mode, I was in medical back, yeah. So my training then kicked in, and it was a different kind of, right, okay, this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
And I says, no, I'm not doing chest compressions. I can't do it. If I do that, I'm risking her life even more. So she did state that she's been changed from a red call, so they're colour coded for ambulances. So she was a red call, which was like a 12-minute response time, to a purple call, which is an 8-minute. And it was basically a purple call, so that means death. So at that point, like, the ambulance did come quite quickly. My husband had to go and get the defib and things like that. But actually, the paramedics arrived before my husband arrived back with a defib. That's how quickly they arrived. They come in. Obviously, I had Regan on the floor, trying to protect her airway. And she was still taking seizures at this point. And the paramedics basically took everything off her top half, literally, put defib pads on, put stickies on, just obviously monitoring her heart rate. Heart rate was through the roof. Her oxygen levels was at 46, which is, like, surprisingly that she was even breathing at all. So they did manage to obviously get her back, and they decided to obviously take her in due to the fact that the type of seizure she was having. And the paramedics stated, this is not an FND seizure. So, although I've been told this by 2 different sets of paramedics already at this point, I was a bit like, okay, I didn't think that was an FND seizure myself, but I'm new to this, so I was a bit like, right, okay. I was like, it looked like an epilepsy seizure to me. And they definitely did say this doesn't look like an FND seizure. They witnessed her taking that seizure. So, yeah, we went to our local hospital, sat in an ambulance for 3 hours, waiting to get in.
Into the hospital?
Yep. Then she took another seizure in the ambulance. They were ready to actually give her recovery meds at this point, because they'd seen the previous seizure and they didn't want the same happening again. Plus, obviously, it would affect her brain, it would affect everything.
Yeah.
So they just basically says, right, okay, she's come out this one quite quickly herself, so we'll just leave the recovery meds. We're going to go and get a doctor to come in to the ambulance. So they did. This is where our fight then started. So he come in, and they basically pulled Regan's wrist from here. Bear in mind, she's still paralysed. Pulled her wrist and pulled her up, which is no manual handling at all.
Okay.
Knowing, because I know that that's not right. And I sat there and I thought, right, okay, what is he doing? Then Regan explained that she has FND. The minute Regan says she has FND, he says, put her in a wheelchair, and put her into the waiting room. Bear in mind, paramedics had ripped all her top half her clothes off. She had just basically a short bra top on, and he was expecting her, whilst just having another seizure, to sit in a waiting room in A&E.
Wow.
Which I was like, that's not happening.
Yeah.
I was like, that is not happening. And he says, yes, it will be. I says, not one. So there was a few arguments back and forward in regards to that. And then eventually it just left, because I think he knew that I I wasn't leaving that ambulance with my daughter to put her into a waiting room.
Yeah.
And I says, right, at that point I was like, they're very dismissive because the fact she has FND. So rather than actually looking at her as a patient and the conditions and the symptoms and what's been going on, short period, what they're meant to treat, he looked long term of her condition that she has.
Yeah.
So he overlooked everything else and actually just looked at the FND.
Yeah.
Because it was queried that Regan obviously has epilepsy along with the FND because she has two different types of seizures. But yeah, the support that we've had through NHS was disgusting. At that point, I actually chose to take my daughter out the ambulance and put her in my car and drive 35 to 40 minutes to another hospital. Paramedics was like, we advise you don't, but we understand why. Because you feel dismissed. We get that. So I did. I took Regan, put her into the car, and I drove to the next basically closest hospital to us. Regan was actually born in this other hospital, so they did have, obviously, they knew who she was and things like that. They had a patient record for her. So we went in, I ran in and I explained, my daughter's in the car, she's paralysed. I've just had to take her out in an ambulance at my local hospital because the local hospital was dismissing her because she has FND. But actually paramedics have stated that this is not an FND seizure and I want her to be seen. So I handed over basically the print off that paramedics had gave us.
Yeah.
I handed that over and they told me, there's a wheelchair, somebody will help you. So a woman come and helped us get Regan. So I lifted Regan out the car into the wheelchair, took her in, and I hadn't even sat my bum on the chair in the waiting room, and we were took into resus.
Okay. So a much different response from one hospital to the other.
Very, very different. We obviously spoke to a consultant in there while we were in there. We were in overnight, and the consultant obviously had stated this sounds very different to an FND seizure. Even the print off from the paramedics, what they've described sounds very much epilepsy. So we were a bit like, okay, what do we do now? And all he advised is because she has a neurologist already at our local hospital to go back to him. So I says, right, okay. I says, but what do I do in regards to her being paralysed? How
long has she been paralysed at this point?
So this was probably about 18 hours at this point.
Right.
And I thought to myself, okay, that's fine, like, but what do I do at home? Like, she's a 17-year-old girl who is paralysed and I have no wheelchair because I've never needed one. I have no, like, aids in the house to support with her. I was like, who do I phone? Who do I contact? And they just basically, he says to me, you would have to contact your own neurologist who can refer you on to other services. And I thought, right, okay. I says, that's fine. Because that's a protocol that I probably would have used anyway if I was doing my job. It would have been the same protocol. But I thought because we're going back to community, it might be a different thing. So anyway, I gets home. Bear in mind I had been awake for well over 24 hours. Probably 36 hours at this point. I was shattered. I waited up to phone to try and speak to the neurologist. And the secretary told me that he was in clinic and I says, yeah, that's fine, but I want a response. So I explained what had happened and I want to know what he's going to do in this situation.
Yeah.
So I left it, contacted my GP, basically to say, where do I go for support? Like, who do I contact? My GP was the receptionist was a bit unsure. So she says, I'll speak to the GP and we'll contact you back. And I says, that's fine. She says, but probably if you're in contact with the neurologist, it'll be him that'll deal with any situation at home in regards to AIDS and things like that. And I says, right, okay, that's fine. So, still waiting on a phone call, nothing at all. So I phones back to the consultant the next day, and it was the secretary that I obviously got a hold of. She basically told me, he's wrote a letter, do you want me to read it? And I says, well, yeah. I says, because I need to know what he's saying in regards to things that I've discussed. So basically on the letter it stated that we were to go and educate ourselves on FND, which I had been doing for weeks, may I add.
You've already been told this.
Yes, and he'll see us in clinic in July. So this was June.
Wow.
And basically there was nothing. Very dismissive. It was actually disgusting. There was no support, no nothing.
No.
Just basically told to get on with it and deal with it, and that he would see us in clinic in July.
Wow.
So at that point, I then was like, right, okay.
And Regan's still fully paralysed at this point.
Mm-hmm. So I ended up contacting OTs, physios, things like that on my own. Done all that on my own. Didn't need any support for NHS. I was at that point. I was angry. I was determined.
Yeah.
I was trying to fight.
The mother's anger's kicked in.
I was trying to fight for my daughter, and I thought, right, okay, and then I started researching other things. So this was the point I started researching CBD oil, for to have a wee look and see, because I know it helps with epilepsy.
Yeah.
And I've known that for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So in that point I thought, okay, listen, we've nothing to lose. There's nothing to lose.
No.
We're getting no support anyway. And if this is the life that my daughter's got to live, then so be it. But actually, if I'm doing something else, then it might help, even if it's just stopping the seizures.
Yeah. A bit of
even if you can
care,
just have the seizures reduced.
Yeah.
Never mind her being paralysed. Like, even if she was just able to stop the seizures. So actually, at that point, I went and bought stuff from Holland and Barrett.
Okay.
To trial it, to see. Regan was very reluctant about trying it, because she was like, don't want to try it. She was like, I don't want to take anything like that. And I says, just try it.
Because there's a real stigma around CBD and cannabis and things like this, and it's understandable.
Yeah, so she obviously, I says, just give it a go. So she did. And it seemed to help, but it never took them away.
No. And how many seizures was she having at this point?
So at this point, she was probably having 50% less than she was before. So it was almost like we were managing to go maybe 3 days, and she was only having maybe 1 or 2 seizures in that day. So it was definitely a lot less than what she was having previously.
Yeah.
But she was still paralysed at this point.
Okay.
It wasn't helping with any of that.
There was no sign of any movement coming back?
No, there was nothing. So then, the more research I did, the more I looked into it, I contacted friends, and it was actually a friend whose son was diagnosed with epilepsy along the time Regan started having her seizures. Okay. So yeah, he advised that we looked up Joel's. And I thought, right, okay. I was like, right, I've looked into it properly, like I've looked into it as best as I can.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as you can imagine, I'm not working, I'm at home, got all these things running through my head.
Of course.
I wasn't sleeping great, so this was what I was researching for hours on end.
Down the rabbit hole.
Yep.
Yeah.
So contacted Joel and basically explained my daughter's situation, explained that Regan's been having these seizures, she's got FND, she's paralysed, like, this was basically, she's in a wheelchair, she's wheelchair bound at the moment. We're looking to see if there's any type of CBD oil that might help.
Yeah.
So, yes, they got back to me and basically explained that there's one that we can try with the CBG, but it's a trial because it's new, it's not something that had been done.
That's right.
So we were like, okay, let's go for it with nothing to lose.
So this was full spectrum cannabis oil with
Yep.
the THC, CBD and CBG.
Yeah. And we thought we have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Nothing to lose. So we did. We says we'll go for it. We'll do this trial. All that was asked of us if we can give feedback.
Okay.
Which we documented all Regan's journey on Facebook.
Yeah.
That was something, Regan's journey has been documented from very first seizure right through. So we were like, yeah, that's fine. We've nothing to hide anyway. Like, that, we're documenting it for ourselves anyway.
And I imagine you feel you've nothing to lose at this point.
Yeah, we had nothing to lose. So we did, we tried it. So we got it. Regan turned 18 on the 4th of July. And she started her oil on the 5th of July. By taking just one drop 3 times a day. That's what she started on. And then the 6th of July she had a very small seizure. Wasn't nothing. We just thought, right, okay, it's not quite in our system yet, so that's fine. We just sort of says, right, we'll bypass that.
And your hopes at this point are just maybe even it'll help with the seizures.
Yeah, even if it reduced our seizures, that's all we asked.
Yeah.
So at that point we were like, okay, that's fine. And then within 11 days Regan was up walking on her own. With no aids, no Zimmer frame, no nothing. She was up walking. It wasn't balanced walking, but it was walking all the same. Compared to being paralysed from the waist down and being in a wheelchair, me having to lift her in and out and things like that.
Yeah.
Like, she was able to walk on her own. There was no seizures in that whole 11 days either.
Wow.
Then, she's been up walking since that day.
Since that day, she's had no paralysed.
She's not had anything. She gets obviously a wee bit like shaky now and then, but it's nothing compared to what she had. So she's actually 17 weeks seizure free as well.
Wow. I mean, the gravity of this story, I remember seeing the videos of Regan being put on Joel's social media at the time. And I remember him speaking to me about it and trialling this oil with this young lady that was paralysed. And I didn't take on the gravity or the magnitude of the story at the time. It wasn't until I spoke to you and heard the mother's version of how much of a story this is actually, how much of a turnaround in such a short space of time from being paralysed and having all these seizures to within 11 days. She's fully up and walking and now seizure free. So today, how is she?
Today, she's up, walking, back to normal. She's awaiting to get her driving licence back. She's desperate to get back in the land of work, but obviously I say she's rushing into it a bit. She needs to build her strength back up. But she just finished her last physio session with paediatric team, because obviously she's 18 now. So she's been referred on to neurological physio. She's not keen about that. But I mean, like, the difference, she's able to go into a gym. She's able to...
When I met her today, you wouldn't know there'd been anything go on this year.
Yeah.
or any time, you just wouldn't know. It's such a turnaround. Obviously, you've seen this turnaround take place. So for you, where there was no other option, as a mum, tried this oil with just the hope and expectation of maybe it'll help
just
with the
help
seizures.
a bit, yeah. I
You
never had
weren't
anything.
expecting.
No, I never expected this.
Yeah.
I just hoped that it would help the seizures slightly.
Yeah.
Me and my husband both hoped that even if it just helped her have a few days where she had no seizures,
Yeah.
to have kind of a normal life.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, we were actually planning on putting ramps in the house, and like, it was just like
A complete change of life. Giving up your work.
We held off with the ramp situation and things like that just because we thought, we'll give this oil time to work before we actually look at further things. But I mean, Regan's story already has helped, I don't know, hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Which I'm led to believe you guys, obviously, like Joel's oil has helped loads of people previous to Regan, but since Regan's story, a lot more people has contacted in regards to, I've seen Regan's video, or I've been referred from Emma, Regan's mum, because I've got this, and it's not just FND. It isn't just FND. It's other things as well. But actually, the FND, when somebody tells you there's nothing can be done, you hold out hope, and you think there has to be something there.
Yeah.
There has to be. There's no way. There's no cure for something.
Yeah.
But as I say, like, this has literally gave her whole life back. Obviously, we have Joel to thank for that, because without him, like, she probably wouldn't be where she is today. And so she goes out with friends, and don't get me wrong, there is obviously a few symptoms that sort of appear. There is still risks of her having seizures because due to flashing lights. Last weekend she experienced fireworks for the first time since having her seizures, and that didn't go well. She never had a seizure, but it was an almost. But like,
I imagine as time goes by, though, that will
should
change.
help. It should help, unless obviously she does have epilepsy along with the FND.
Okay.
Then it's obviously just a case that flashing lights is part of that.
Yeah.
That is one of our triggers anyway. Is that we used to think, so we thought cheese is a trigger. We only found this out because she loves to eat.
Okay.
That was the only difference. That was the only symptom that actually the oil gave her, was she needed to eat a lot more, which is normal. That's probably a normal thing, but it only lasted maybe a week, if that.
Yeah.
And then it was just normal. So obviously now Regan's on, she takes 2 drops 3 times a day, and there's no feeling, there's nothing. She doesn't feel any different.
Yeah.
Having oil.
Yeah.
So there's no impact, and I think a lot of people are sceptical because they think it's going to make them high.
That's right, but we build up a natural tolerance once you start working with these medicines. There's a natural tolerance builds up, and like you say, you can use them daily. And not feel that effect. And this is the case with Regan.
I mean, that's what it says. After a week, Regan was absolutely fine. There was, apart from obviously she was eating me out of house and home. But I think that was pure boredom as well, because she was sitting in her bed. At that point, she was still paralysed. So. It was almost the fact of that was the slight thing that changed with symptoms wise from the effect of the oil. But
so for you, this turnaround that you've seen from this little bottle of oil is life changing.
Yeah,
it's life changing. It would be safe to say that.
Yeah, 100%. There's no, and if I had to look back at it again and try and do this journey again, I probably wouldn't do it any different, to be honest with you.
Maybe get in contact with Joel quicker.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think obviously I had to do that research to have a wee bit of an
Of
understanding.
course.
So when I did research like FND and CBD together, it did say that it does have an effect and it does work.
Yeah.
But then when obviously Joel had offered us with the CBG, like the triple, we were a bit like, okay, well, we've nothing to lose.
Exactly.
So,
And there must be so many other people out there in that situation that are feeling like with no hope and
yeah, there's a lot of families contacting me because there's a few kids that have it.
yeah.
Obviously, we've not had the fact that she has this. She's got FND. It's not going to change. It's a life limiting condition that basically she'll have all her life. But I mean, she can go unaffected for years, and then it might be that it can come back again. And even at that, the oil's the only thing that's actually taking that away.
Yeah.
Because Regan's severity was quite bad, so because she had the seizures, she had tics, she was paralysed, and not just one side, it was full body paralysis. Like there was other things that was like triggering her small symptoms that she had alongside it. So it is because FND is a massive umbrella of symptoms.
Yeah.
Not one person will be the same. I mean, we know quite a few people now because we've done a FND group local to us because we had no support. There was no support there for these guys.
Yeah.
So we done that and it literally gave us a bit of hope. And obviously we've not had the fact that Regan does this, but it has to be somebody's choice to take the oil.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, like, I can only advise that's what Regan does and Regan takes oils and it helps.
Yeah.
But it is down to the individual.
Of course, and we would always say do your own research and have a
Yeah.
look, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But these kind of stories are really important to get out there because this is a real experience. This is a real experience that you and Regan and all your family have been through.
Yeah.
And it's good to share these things, and we feel it's really important at this time to share, not just for the benefit of the awareness of the medicine and the power of the medicine, but also for Joel and
Yeah.
people like him that are being criminalised.
Punished,
Criminalised
know
for this
what?
kind of work.
Mm-hmm. It makes me quite angry because I think, know what, it's something natural that before you had all these pharmaceutical things, it was a natural plant. It's a natural plant, so what did they do years ago? Probably
Yeah,
that was all they had.
yeah.
So I think realistically, why should you get punished for nature?
Exactly. I mean, it comes down to where there's no victim, there's no crime.
Mm-hmm.
And all we can find here, in Joel's case, certainly is people that he's helped.
Yeah.
So it is very unjust.
Mm-hmm.
But what a heartwarming story. What a turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing
No,
this
you're
story with
welcome.
us. It's been so amazing to hear it from a mother's perspective of what you've been through, even with your own medical background,
Mm-hmm.
what you must have felt at the time,
Yeah.
seeing your daughter this way.
It's just, I think it's more the fact that you're left
Yeah.
with no
Answers. And
answers,
nothing. Yeah.
no hope, no nothing,
Yeah.
and you have to find your own hope, really.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what we did. We found that through contacting Joel. That was literally the only hope that we had. We
Yeah.
had, as I say, nothing to lose. So
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an amazing first episode. I'm really blessed to be able to get these stories out there on behalf of Joel and yourself.
mm-hmm.
Because I know you've started a support group now, and
Mm-hmm.
I know that you were very keen to get this story out there as well.
Yeah.
So it's a real blessing to be able to do this, and thank you for joining us.
No.
That has been the first episode of Healers Not Dealers. Thank you for lending us your ears, and we ask that you always lend us your support as well by liking and sharing. Yeah, thank you.